Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the channel. It's 6:13 a.m. East Coast time, Monday, September 9th. We just did a full Sunday week one outside of the two Monday night games tonight, which there's a video out for. But we just did the full week one slate. Everything's done, right? Tons of crazy things. How many receivers went over 150 yards? How many receivers went over 100 yards that you would not expect, right? Lamar Jackson balling out. But it's week two. Again, it's as early as it gets. It is literally 6 o'clock in the morning, East Coast time, Monday. It's week two. Lots of things are going to come out in terms of injuries. We're going to break down into analysis myself on some of the Awesemo streams, on some of my videos on this channel. So things are going to change in terms of where I go for like a cash lineup. But in honor of last year, starting this YouTube channel off with some first look lineups inspired by the GOAT himself, Al Seinfeld, great guy. We'll do the same thing. We'll do a first look lineup here. We'll see. We'll cater to everybody's early week interests. And if you're watching this on Wednesday or Thursday, just know this isn't a lineup that I'm using. If you want to take whatever lineup that I make right now, you can. Just don't come back like the guy did in my DMs this morning and call me a goofball and all this because my pick stunk when he just didn't even listen to what I was saying. So, anyways, if you're new here, welcome. I do cover daily fantasy sports in the NFL, MLB, NBA, and WNBA streets. NBA is in 6 weeks. I cannot wait. The best DFS sport by far is NBA in my opinion. But yeah, now we are here. If you have any interest down below, I have a exclusive content on Patreon for football season, a ton. There's about almost like 160 patrons over there. Appreciate each and every one of you. Also follow me on Twitter at SalvetriDFS. So the goal here is this is the first time I'm opening the salaries. I saw they were released early. Last year, I think they came out a little bit later. I'm not positive, but yeah, this is the first time I'm looking at it. So we're going to just have some fun with it. I'm going to build out based on what I saw, and a lot of the analysis and usage notes are already up on Patreon. We're going to build out what I saw. So let's see what we got going on here. So Patrick Mahomes, 7,500. Oh my God, I think that's the highest price he's ever been, but it makes sense because he just absolutely torched Jacksonville for like 380 yards on very limited pass attempts. I think he threw like 33 times. He's questionable because he came out a little bit with an ankle or whatever it was. Maybe that kind of gets worse throughout the week, but I doubt it keeps him from playing. Lamar Jackson is 6,700 against Arizona. Look, Arizona's defense is absolutely terrible. They let Matt Stafford and the run-heavy approach Lions go for like 300-plus passing yards and 3 tutties against them. Lamar Jackson, though, that's a pretty aggressive price up point. Look, the guy threw 20 times and threw 5 touchdowns. He's not throwing a touchdown every 4 attempts. I love Lamar Jackson, by the way. I've been hyping him. I have him in a lot of season-long leagues. But it's not going to happen. Now, obviously, he didn't run a lot because he was so efficient, right? He only ran 3 times because he was so efficient. But they have hinted that he's only going to throw a lot more and not run as much. If he doesn't run as much and he clearly loses that efficiency of a touchdown every 4 attempts, things can be worrisome. But not this week, not against Arizona. Arizona's defense is awful. They're still not going to have Patrick Peterson. They're still going to be limited in their secondary. Pass rush is non-existent. Lamar Jackson at 6,700 is a steep price point, especially for like a cash lineup. I like to pay down at quarterback. I did last week. Last week I didn't. I got Patrick Mahomes, but that's just because week one you have such inefficient pricing that it's so easy to get to any quarterback you want. So why not get the one with the highest projection? But this week it's going to be a lot harder to get $7,500 Patrick Mahomes. At least I imagine so when we look at the running back and wide receiver pricing. So a couple of things here when I'm looking at this. $6,000 quarterbacks that stand out. Dak Prescott has to. I mean, yesterday afternoon into last night just balled out. Was a guy who had a lot of interest in terms of stacks. Now he gets to go up against Washington, who's secondary. Yeah, Landon Collins he's familiar with. Josh Norman, who in my opinion has become much worse, is nowhere near a lockdown cornerback. But then what do you have? Linebackers, the pass rush, not a lot there that really worries me, especially against a Dallas offensive line where Dak's going to kind of, again, I think, have as much to do what he wants. Clearly, this isn't the Giants where there's no skilled players in the secondary outside of Jenkins. But yeah, Dak Prescott at 6,300 looks pretty nice. Let's find a quarterback that is middling of the pack a little bit in terms of price point, and then we can kind of take advantage of the fact that they are cheap. Phillip Rivers, 6,100 stands out. Had a good game yesterday. Really relied on Austin Eckler a good amount. And Keenan Allen, which is things that we said. Keenan Allen, Eckler, Hunter Henry all had pretty good to great games. But their offensive line, Seattle or Detroit's going to play very slow. The pace there, once again, a little bit worrisome. Okay, we're looking. Josh Allen at 5,300 against the Giants stands out. The Giants just got absolutely torched. Let's throw him in there at 5,300. Giants just got absolutely torched by Dak. Josh Allen is the guy that we know he favored John Brown. It all worked out, right? Week one, it worked out. John Brown, week one stats are out. John Brown had over 100 yards, a touchdown. He was targeting him. He was targeting Cole Beasley. The players that you would expect him to look for is what exactly he was doing. Then in the second half, if you weren't paying attention, Devin Singletary got loose for like over 90-plus yards in the second half. He caught 3-4 balls, something in that range. Had 4 carries for 70 yards on the ground. Keep an eye on Devin Singletary because if he starts getting usage in this offense, it's only going to help Josh Allen, in my opinion. So Let's go $5,300 Josh Allen. Makes a lot of sense, at least early on right now to me. Looking more in that range. Baltimore, Kyler Murray, no. Denver versus Mitch Trubisky. We'll see what Denver's defense looks like tonight. Jared Goff at 5,900 is a very good play to me, in my opinion, especially against the Saints. We'll see how their defense looks tonight. But a lot of people are going to overreact to Goff. He's going to be going home now. Again, you could say what you want about LA being a positive home environment. But overreactions happen between week 1 and week 2, by far the most out of any team. Jared Goff did not play well yesterday, but he still targeted Robert Woods 13 times, Cooper Kupp 10 times. These wide receivers are going to be more than viable, especially in cash. But in tournaments, I think, once again, the Rams seem like a fine stack. I was on them this week. They disappointed due to just overall Goff not being effective and accurate. But a lot of those things are going to be overhyped from week 1 to week 2 and just absolutely sink the ownership levels. All right. I think I feel good about this. I think I feel good about going to Josh Allen. It's cash, so we don't have to stack him with his quarterback or anything like that. If I had to pick a second option to go to right now, Jared Goff is honestly where I'd go. Jimmy G's in a fine spot at 6K as well for cash. These two guys in this range make sense to me. If we could pay up for them, I'd prefer Goff to Allen, but we'll see. The price point of $5,300 on Allen makes me feel good. Saquon Barkley against Buffalo, $9,200. Look, you're paying for opportunity here, even in a game where his team was down the entire time. Obviously, a lot of this was indicated by a 56-yard run. It's not going to be up yet, but he had over 100 yards rushing on like 10 or 11 attempts. He caught 3 balls for 19 yards. Not the greatest Saquon game. Didn't get in the end zone, but none of that is on him. Dallas pretty much neutralized Saquon, saying you're not going to beat us out of the backfield. They had linebackers just running towards Saquon on every single passing play, not letting him get free at all, and Evan Ingram benefited a lot from that. Zeke Elliott played 31 snaps. People are going to get all my mentions. Oh, you didn't think he was going to play 20 or 25 snaps? Well, he didn't. He played 31, and also his team was up that big. I think that there was merit to him being pulled. Look, I said if there was like a 15-point difference, they weren't going to pull him. When it gets to the point where it's 25-point difference in the fourth quarter, yeah, all your starters shouldn't be in the game. We saw Mahomes get pulled. We saw players get pulled left and right for the most part, so I'm not too worried about that. Zeke Elliott, 8,700 against Washington, whose just defensive line is not great, to say the least. Zeke Elliott for cash makes a lot of sense. I'm going to be keying in probably on Zeke Elliott. But let's look at the rest that we got here. Kamara against the Rams. That seems okay to good. We saw Christian McCaffrey absolutely just light up the Rams. McCaffrey's kind of just his own beast, though, for 100-plus like receiving yards. Went for like 200-plus yards total, 2 touchdowns. Kamara is somebody who I want to see how he performs tonight, but lots of interest there. Dalvin Cook, the absolute monster himself last week, $6,000, just shredded in Atlanta Falcons defense. Now you get him against Green Bay, a much improved Green Bay defense. I don't want to overhype the Packers defense from their week 1 performance against a injury-riddled Bears team. No Trey Burton, limited Anthony Miller, so a lot of their upside was not there. And also Mitch Trubisky at the helm. But Minnesota's going to run the ball. Now, look, Kirk Cousins only threw 10 times week 1. That's clearly game flow dependent, right? They're not going to only throw 10 times a week. But they ran the ball 32 times with running backs. Alexander Mattison, as I suspected and was hinting at all week, he saw 28% of the carries. He's going to get work. They want him to be the Latavius Murray of this offense. So Murray not there anymore, now in New Orleans. So keep an eye on that. Like, Dalvin Cook still got 21 carries, but in a game where they could run the ball nonstop, he still only saw 2 targets. He caught both of them, I believe, for like 9 yards. But Dalvin Cook is still a fine play against the Packers. 7,200 seems nice, but people are going to overhype Dalvin Cook now. Keep an eye on it. Alexander Mattison saw nearly 30% of the workload in this backfield. And Dalvin Cook, overall, they're not going to throw the ball a lot. You probably see 10% of the targets go to running backs. So there's some pass catching upside there. It's primarily going to be on the ground. Now, don't get me wrong. Cook looked absolutely phenomenal on the ground. So 7,200 is still probably about $300 to $500 too cheap. So let's put Cook in there for now. And let's also put Zeke in there for now, because Zeke is not going to be limited anymore. Let's see what else we can get to. I'm just going to throw a cheap look. This is my stance on defense. I build out the rest of my lineup, especially in cash, and I put whatever fits left. If they're facing the team with the highest implied total, well then yeah, sure, I'll try to get away from it. But for the most part, I don't care about defense. It's so hard to pick who's going to be the interception machine. Just look for defensive lines that have an advantage over the offensive line, because then you're going to generate pressure. You generate pressure, you get sacks. Those are points. You force quarterbacks to make mistakes. Interception, those are points. And then maybe you'll be lucky enough to be the guy who gets the team that has a 60-yard pick six and breaks 2 tackles, because I sure as hell can't predict that. So with this all said, let's look around. You get the Colts against Tennessee. That seems pretty decent. 2,500. The Colts defense clearly not great. Their funnel defense, which for fantasy points, as long as they keep you out of the end zone, probably is okay. Raiders against Oakland, Miami, Arizona against Baltimore, no. Okay, so we're just going to go with the Colts at 2,500. Again, do whatever you want here. I'm not too worried about defense overall. And then I'll fill in a tight end. This is just the way that I like to work it. Tight ends are usually stable for me. I like to put in tight ends that just overall are going to be on the field 1, Number two are going to have upside. Like you see, these guys are just priced ridiculously high. Kelsey had like 3 catches for 88 yards, and that was considered a bad game for Kelsey. Meanwhile, those 12 fantasy points would probably still rank in like top 6 for tight ends yesterday. George Kittle, 6,800, okay game in terms of receiving yards, nothing crazy. Evan Ingram absolutely dominated. Last year, though, Buffalo was very good against the tight end, but Ingram just went off. I mean, they took away Saquon, Dallas, and their game plan was, okay, who else is going to beat us? Benny Fowler? Cody Lattimore? No. Sterling Shepard was pretty much ghosty. It was Evan Ingram in the middle of the field because he's just a size mismatch for anybody going up against him. So Evan Ingram stands out at 5,200. Mark Andrews, a guy who I'm very much opposed to in a sense because he wasn't getting on the field all that much. I want to see what his snap count looks like when those snap statistics come out this week. But he had over 100 yards and a touchdown. Keep in mind, though, the touchdown did not come from Lamar, although I don't care too much about that. He still had the yardage. But the touchdown came from Robert Griffin III in the fourth quarter to kind of end the game. Jimmy Graham against Minnesota, $3,700. Let's throw Jimmy Graham in a tough matchup at $3,700. I'm going to be interested. I'm going to put Jimmy Graham in here for now, and we'll see what else we can get to. And hopefully the goal here is to be able to pay up at tight end. But Jimmy Graham, probably more of a tight end in the GPP format, but we'll leave him in here for right now. And here's the main reason why. And actually, I'm going to pull this one back because I see the better option, and it's Delaney Walker at 3,500 against the Colts, who gave up the most yards to tight ends last year, who just gave up 60 yards to Hunter Henry in week 1. And Delaney Walker, clearly still the favorite target of Marcus Mariota, I believe, led the team in targets. He had 5 catches for 55 yards and 2 touchdowns. Still going to be a red zone monster. But the reason I have interest in Jimmy Graham is Aaron Rodgers and that offense and Matt LaFleur were saying they want to get the tight ends more involved, and we've been hearing that for like 4 years in Green Bay. But there's actually an active effort to. Rodgers threw 30 times, 10 targets were to tight ends. 6 of those were to Jimmy Graham. Multiple red zone targets, caught the only touchdown in the game. So Jimmy Graham, I think, is going to have upside this year. And I think tight ends in general. Mercedes Lewis had 3 targets. Robert Tonyan, second-year player, had 1 target. Lewis was primarily a run blocker last year. Would be lucky to see 3 targets in like 6 games. So they seem like they want to get the tight ends, which makes sense. There are mismatches involved. But for cash purposes, Delaney Walker, his price point doesn't move after catching 2 touchdowns, still facing the Colts, who are absolutely dust against tight ends. They were dead last year in terms of how many yards they allowed because they're a funnel defense. They gave up 60 week 1 to Hunter Henry. So give me a cheap Delaney Walker with obviously touchdown upside and equity. So let's get to the wide receivers now. So right now I feel pretty confident, pretty good about this lineup for cash. Look at this. Keenan Allen already priced up. The man was only he was 7,300, already priced to 7,600. The man's just a monster. Somebody told me that I had no interest in Keenan Allen. I made a whole video on Keenan Allen, so that's not the case at all. Let's see what the wide receivers we have. Devontae against Minnesota. I'm not scared of that matchup. Xavier Rhodes is dusty. Trey Waynes is dusty. Devontae is an absolutely monster wide receiver. Neither of those guys. He burned Xavier Rhodes every option that he could last year. So when you see first right here, just know that DraftKings opponent rankings are absolutely terrible, and they're not right at all. So, I mean, last week alone, Minnesota gave up 2 touchdowns, 1 to Ridley, 1 to Julio. I can't imagine that that's first. And they gave up like 80-something yards or so to Austin Hooper, which I don't believe they're on the slate. No, they're not on the slate. I was going to say, what's Austin Hooper's price? So, we want to look at wide receivers here. You have a couple of wide receivers on the top end. DeAndre Hopkins playing tonight against Jacksonville. You're going to have an okay matchup against Ramsey. They've kind of given – Hopkins has gotten the best of that. Ramsey's gotten the best of that. No real interest there. Michael Thomas against the Rams. We saw in week 1 that Cam Newton – there was opportunities to kind of beat the Rams on defense, and Cam Newton just missed them, whether it was Samuel, whether it was DJ Moore, even Greg Olsen in the flat a couple times. Newton threw away just 5 passes that he had open receivers, and not just guys who had 1 step, guys that were open by 2 to 3 steps. So Michael Thomas is definitely in play at $8,000 if you can afford it in cash. Let's move down a little. So Tyreek Hill right now, he's probably going to avoid surgery, but he's week to week. With that being said, I don't know how you don't like Sammy Watkins at $7,200. $7,200 Sammy Watkins, he obviously just went off week 1. If Tyreek's not out there, now you get to go up against Oakland. I'm not too scared of Oakland in the secondary, definitely not with Patrick Mahomes at the helm. So Sammy Watkins stands out as a nice play at $7,200. You have to imagine that they get McCole Hardman, the rookie, on the field a little bit more. What is Hardman's price? He's not going to be a guy that I would want to risk in cash. He's $4,800, so his price point comes up a little. So yeah, Sammy Watkins stands out a little bit, $7,200. I think it's a fine price point. Let's go to the kind of where we get the value from, because Sammy Watkins, the price point's good, but it seems like he came up really quickly. Oh my God. Holy cow. Okay, here we go. This is what I want to do. So let's get him out of here. So this is the range. These Rams wide receivers. Robert Woods, 13 targets yesterday. Brandon Cooks, more of a GPP play, but he still saw his target share being fine. He was missed on a deep ball where he was open by Jared Goff. Probably would have been a touchdown. And then you have Cooper Kupp, who saw 10 targets, was getting a lot of intermediate routes. $6,000 for Cooper Kupp is way too cheap. 10 targets for him. Robert Woods, honestly, at $6,400 is way too cheap. That's why I like this stack once again. I think Jared Goff, Woods, Kupp, Cooks, all these guys are still in play. Gurley to an extent, but obviously Gurley's workload, only 14 touches in the backfield to Malcolm Brown's 11. Brown getting the 2 red zone touchdowns. That's not great. It's like a 65 or a 55-45 split. Not great at all. So probably not the greatest. Definitely not for cash. But Cooper Kupp, $6,000 flat. Way too cheap for a guy who came back, caught 7 out of 10 targets. And honestly, he should have had at least another catch. From when I was watching the game, had a lot of stock in it. Should have had at least one more catch. Didn't get it. Okay, what else do we have here? Allen Robinson at 6,100 stands out. So it should be a little bit of a tougher matchup against Denver, but not really. Overall, cornerbacks on the outside aren't that scary. Their defensive line is scary. If Chris Harris Jr. is still who he is in the slot, he'll be scary. But Robinson will move into the slot. He'll move to the outside. Even with Mitch Trubisky playing as bad as he did in week 1, Robinson still had 7 catches, eclipsed 100 yards, and he should have had a lot more. He was beating guys left and right. He's now 2 years removed from his ACL injury. $6,100 Allen Robinson. Seems like a very good value for a guy who very soon, and I'm surprised he's not already, should be priced in like the 7K or above range as the number 1 wide receiver in Chicago. Look, again, Trubisky played as poorly as he could in week 1, and you still got Allen Robinson for over 20 DK points. So yeah, Allen Robinson, Cooper Kupp, the targets will be there. What you want here out of your wide receivers is, can I get 10 targets out of these guys? I definitely think I can get that out of Robinson, and we saw that we got it from really both of them. Robinson 13 in week 1, Cooper Kupp 10 in week 1. I believe I can get that. On the ground, can I see 20 to 25 touches both in the air and on the ground from my running backs? Ezekiel Elliott, without a doubt, can see that, especially if he's going to play more than 31 snaps against Washington, which I would suspect. Dalvin Cook, we saw last week, get 21 on the ground, 2 in the air, so he can get that. A little less confident in Dalvin Cook, though, moving forward for a workload like that, because Madison is going to be back there and people are going to kind of underrate how much he's actually going to be back there. So you have John Brown here at 5,200. You can get a natural kind of stack with him and Josh Allen. That seems interesting to me because, look, John Brown's not a guy usually playing cash, but when he's going to be targeted, however many times he was targeted, I have it in my usage notes, like 10 times last week or something, catches 7 for 120 and a touchdown, it becomes a little bit easier to want to put John Brown in cash. Now, he's never been a really nice cash play by any means, but let's keep scrolling, see what we can find, because $5,200 for John Brown is definitely not terrible. What I will do is I'll go here at running back because I know I always like to put a running back in my flex spot. So we'll see what we can fit in at the running back position in the flex spot. Todd Gurley is $7,000. His price point drops again. David Johnson against Baltimore doesn't stand out. Kamara against the Rams seems okay. McCaffrey against Buffalo seems okay if you can afford it, right? That's the whole idea there, is if you can afford it. So let's see if we have anybody on the cheap. Austin Eckler against Detroit. That's nice if he's still going to be in there scoring 3 touchdowns. He ended up getting, I think, 70% of the workload, which was what I was projecting as his top end. So that looked pretty good. Matt Breida is somebody who stands out against Cincinnati, $5,200. I think that we do have right now Matt Breida. I think that we do have Tevin Coleman dealing with an injury, if I am correct. So he's doubtful. Again, that might just be to return. So Matt Breida here. Matt Breida came out as well, though. Didn't he come out with like a concussion? Keep an eye on this. Matt Breida. We'll keep an eye on what he's doing. $5,200 is a very good price point for Matt Breida. I know that Tevin Coleman came out with an injury. I saw that Matt Breida came out with an injury. I thought he came back into the game. So we'll keep an eye on that. But Matt Breida stands out as a pretty good play. And then at the wide receiver position, we have $5,500 left over. Again, this is the first time I'm literally looking at all this stuff. Dante Pettis only played 2 snaps. So the whole hype of him being done in this offense and Kyle Shanahan after the game saying he has to earn more time. There's something actually going on there with Dante Pettis. I was down on him for a reason. What else do we got down here in this range at wide receiver? John Ross absolutely lit up last week, had like over 100 yards, 2 touchdowns, I believe, 2 touchdowns. Now we get San Francisco at 4,600. DJ Shark had over 100 yards, although on only 4 catches. So keep an eye on that. And DJ Shark was not targeted all that much in general, but especially once Nick Foles went out, 2 targets of his 5 were from Nick Foles. So yeah, DK Metcalf played pretty well. He had 4 catches for like 89 yards overall. So we're getting down here now. A.J. Brown, the rookie, 100 yards on like 3 catches. I want to see what Hunter Renfrow does tonight. So some things can change. The players that stand out here are John Ross at 4,600 and John Brown at 5,200. When I think about these players, they're both tournament players, right? But John Brown seems like the guy, especially if we can stack, which I don't think you have to, but stack him with Josh Allen. He seems like a guy who in the secondary won't really have much of a matchup. But similar things can be said for John Ross here. So John Ross still no AJ Green out there, and he's going to have more opportunities. Week 1, this seems like a very scary spot. We obviously have a ton of money left over right now, $900 left over. If there's any way that we can get up to Saquon here against Buffalo, it's a scary matchup, or even Kamara. So let's see if we can do that. Let's see if we can get off of Dalvin Cook, get ourselves to Kamara. $100, I'll just easily go down to defense here. Jaguars against Houston, that sounds okay to me. We don't have any Houston players in the lineup. That sounds fine. So let's look at this again. So Kamara and Zeke, obviously we want to see what Kamara does tonight. He'll probably be still very similar to his role, 65-70%, like when Mark Ingram was there, but he'll still have red zone touches. Ezekiel Elliott going to lock in all the work in the world. Cooper Kupp, Allen Robinson, I'm expecting 10 targets or so. John Ross is the one spot in this lineup that I feel not as great about, I would say. But we'll see. We'll see what the wide receiver value opens up later in the week. Matt Breida, if he is indeed healthy and Tevin Coleman misses, Breida should be shouldering all the pass-catching work. He should be shouldering around 70% of the work. Raheem Mostert is still out there, but Matt Breida was well ahead of him on the depth chart. $5,200 is a great price point. I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything really low value-wise in terms of running backs. Carlos Hyde, we'll see what Carlos Hyde does tonight. If he goes for like 120 yards and a touchdown, just know that I'll probably have more interest in him. Rex Burkhead against Miami. I know he had a good game last night, but I'm probably not going to still get there, even at $3,800 in cash. Darius Geis got a lot of touches on the ground. Still probably not going to get there. Devin Singletary, $4,200. Price comes up. Keep an eye on Devin Singletary. Again, he was kind of unleashed in the second half. Had like 96 total yards in the second half. David Montgomery's price just hits a bottom floor. That's something that you can kind of try and jump on. Duke Johnson, I want to see what he does tonight. So again, there's going to be some things. Where do players fall tonight? $5,900 Marlon Mack against Tennessee. We saw Nick Chubb struggle somewhat against this Tennessee run defense. Marlon Mack, though, looked phenomenal. Was in the pass-catching game, used everywhere. So, Austin Eckler, Marlon Mack stand out as guys who are definitely going to be options. But for right now, and again, you can do something similar to this. Like, you can get rid of Kamara. You can get Marlon Mack in there. And now you have money to spend up at receiver, and it falls into place that you can get Julian Edelman. So you get a worse running back in terms of overall upside, in my opinion, but not that much worse. You're still going to get 20 touches, 18 to 20 touches here at the running back spot. You're still going to get probably 8, closer to 10 targets for Julian Edelman. Just know that Antonio Brown is now out there week 2. So I'll stick with the original Kamara line. John Ross still kind of the question mark where we're going to have to find something else to get to, but it seems like he was being targeted early and often. Again, though, Andy Dalton threw 51 times, so for cash, John Ross seems like a scary point. I think Matt Breida is actually a very, very good cash play if indeed he's in and Tevin Coleman is out. Zeke, Josh Allen makes sense to me at that price point. Robinson, Cooper Kupp, Kamara. I will never feel bad about Kamara, especially when he's only $8,200. Delaney Walker, 5 catches, 55 yards, 2 touchdowns, led the team in targets, I believe. So, yeah, John Ross is the only weak point. I feel good about this on a first look lineup. We can sit here all day and try and find replacements for John Ross and find cheaper defenses to try and get up to whoever else is above him. There's not much up here that stands out all that much to me, to be completely honest with you. So John Ross, really big week 1, tournament player usually, but seems like a cash fit. Randall Cobb also seems like a cash fit. He was playing well. He was targeted often, $4,500. So it's really whatever you feel comfortable with. I don't think Andy Dalton throws as much as he did, but it seemed like his number one target by a wide margin was indeed John Ross. So this is where I'm at for a first look in terms of a cash type of lineup, or at least working with the salaries. Again, I did not open this. I did not have any pre-advanced looking of these salaries. That was me, my first overall initial reaction to what we were seeing live on camera. Hopefully this helps. Let me know what you would do. I think that the options remaining are that instead of going to Kamara, you pay a little bit more down at running back. You get back to that Dalvin Cook lineup. And then you can pay back up at wide receiver. You would have an extra $1,000 and stay in the $5,600 range at wide receiver. And you can come up here and you can get Michael Gallup, who played really well week 1. You can get D.D. Westbrook, who saw a lot of targets week 1 and now is going to go up against Houston. So I'll kind of end it with this sort of lineup just to give you an idea of what we can do there, the indecisiveness of the first look tilt. So a lineup like this is what you can do. Dalvin Cook, who has similar upside, maybe not similar upside, I would say, to in that offense at least. They're going to run a lot. To Alvin Kamara, you get a wide receiver in Dede, who probably doesn't have as high of a ceiling as John Ross, but in terms of cash, a little bit more stable. So this is a lineup that I like a little bit more. You can get to Michael Gallup too in that same range. Makes sense to me. You can follow me on Twitter at SalVetriDFS. Videos are going to be coming out all week. Tomorrow we'll have the breakdown. I'll go over stats. I'll go over initial pricing and matchups that I like. Friday will be my final thoughts. Thursday night football video will be out as well. I'll do a that one dude video. In week 1, that one dude was Keenan Allen. Ended up having a great game. I'll be live on Awesomo's channel with Lofty on Tuesday and Thursday at 11 a.m. and then on Saturday at 11 a.m. with Chris Randone. So appreciate it. Down below is my Patreon exclusive content. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button. Let me know in the comments down below. Really appreciate that. We are now above 7,600 subscribers, looking for the 8,000 by the middle of this week. Thank you all so much. You all rock. Peace out, gang.
Hey, hold up. 1 second. Check out this page. If you haven't yet subscribed, hit the subscribe button, all right? And if you're interested in Patreon, if you're not already a patron, you can hit that button on Patreon, become a patron. It will take you right there. You can also check me out on Twitter at SalVetriDFS. And hey, if you're interested, this next video that's about to pop up, why don't you check it out as well. See ya.